got a really fun video for you today, and it's one that I have been working on for a while. I am releasing my new capsule meal plan. This is where I take 20 ingredients and I make as many recipes as I possibly can using that capsule of 20 ingredients. I made a video like this about 3 months ago. It was my first time out the gate with this particular concept, and it was pretty popular. It was pretty well received, and a lot of you said that you'd like to see another capsule meal plan, maybe with some different ingredients. So that is what we're doing today. I picked 20 items and I created as many recipes as I possibly could come up with those 20 items, and just kind of your basic, spices, condiments, just sort of the standard bare minimum stuff that you might see in just a typical family kitchen. Just like last time, I'm also releasing a new capsule meal plan ebook, which will include the recipes that I came up with, the ingredients list, plus lots of extras like meal plans, suggestions for leftovers, and I'll be talking more about that in a little bit, and there's information in the description box. But for now, let me show you my capsule of ingredients. For proteins, I have chicken breast, eggs, and ground sausage. I used both pork sausage and Italian style sausage. Ground chicken sausage I think would work just fine as well. For dairy, I've got some feta cheese, some heavy cream, some butter, and some mozzarella cheese. Canned goods, I have pasta sauce, like marinara sauce or just prepared jarred or canned pasta sauce, canned tomatoes, and then also some kind of broth base or broth. For starches, I am using canned biscuit dough. I'm using tortellini, either fresh or frozen, or sometimes frozen ravioli where I couldn't find tortellini, and also rice. Also included in this capsule is a fudge brownie mix. I do several things with that, and some pecans. For produce, I am using celery, carrots, spinach. Mine is actually almost gone. And for a fruit option, I chose apples. And if you are counting, that's actually only 19 ingredients, because the other produce item that I was using was zucchini, and I went to get some zucchini out of the fridge to film this portion for you guys, and I am out. But zucchini is something that I used as well. You're sitting in my spice cabinet because this is where I go when I want seasonings for my food, and I did use a few just kind of standard basic seasonings, or what I would consider sort of standard basic seasonings, and maybe a few staples like a little bit of flour or sugar here or there. If you want to know what my list of basics are, I will leave a video linked in the description box down below where I outlined what I would buy if I was just stocking a completely bare kitchen, the order in which I would purchase it, how I would group items if I needed to purchase just a few items at a time. But if you have sort of your standard spices and seasonings, if you have a few condiments in the refrigerator like ketchup, Worcestershire, soy sauce, if you've got, onion powder, garlic powder, salt and pepper, maybe a little bit of flour and sugar, then you're probably going to be able to make most of these recipes work. And if you don't have all of those things, it's okay. You can probably get by with less, or you can adjust as you see fit. Additionally, I'm making a meal plan around what I think my family will eat. So if you need to adjust it according to dietary needs or preferences, then you probably know better than I do how to do that. And you can feel free to make adjustments as you see fit and as you know how to do that with the ingredients that you need to use. It's a beautiful but really chilly winter day here in Oklahoma, and I'm craving something cozy for lunch. So I'm gonna make some chicken and rice soup. In my big pot here, I have 2 chicken breasts. I have some diced celery, carrots, a little bit of diced onion, and then a half an onion, which I will remove when we're done with this part of the cooking. You'll see here in a little bit. I also seasoned this with some Italian seasoning, a tablespoon or so, a teaspoon of garlic powder, and some salt and pepper. I do not skimp on the salt. I did not put any broth base in this, so I probably used a couple of teaspoons. I put in a couple of bay leaves as well. Seems like the thing to do with stews or soups, so that's what I did. And now I'm going to add 3 quarts of water. That's a tall drink of water. I'm going to bring this to a boil, and then I'm going to let it simmer for, I don't know, probably about 40 minutes or so until the chicken is done. And then we will not only have cooked chicken, we will have made our broth to make the rest of the soup. Yay. My broth is done. My chicken is cooked. I removed it and shredded it up, and I also removed the large chunks of onion and the bay leaves from my pot here. I brought it back to a boil, and now I am adding 1 cup of white rice. I should have more than enough broth for this rice to get cooked, and then also still leave some broth so that it'll be soupy. So I need for this to boil for about 15 minutes or so to cook the rice, and then we'll be ready to finish it up. My rice is done cooking, and all I'm gonna do to finish this off is put the shredded chicken back in and add about 1/2 cup of heavy cream to give it a little richness, and then it will be ready to serve. And when I serve this leftover, I usually have to add a little bit of broth or water to it the next day because the rice will continue to soak up the moisture, but really yummy, flavorful, simple soup. Another really delicious soup recipe that you can make using ingredients from this capsule is a sausage tortellini soup. I make mine by browning some sausage, adding some veggies, like maybe some carrot, celery, and onion, some chicken broth, seasoning it with a little bit of Italian seasoning. I usually throw in a can or 2 of tomatoes as well, especially if I have fire roasted tomatoes. I find that those go really, really well in this soup. I like to make mine in the crock pot. I've made it on the stove before, but I usually just let all that simmer in the crock pot, and then right before I'm ready to serve it, I'll just throw in my tortellini, either about 9 ounces of fresh or about 1/2 bag of frozen, and it only takes a few minutes for those tortellini to cook. I also add about 1/2 cup or so of heavy cream, and then I serve it with a little bit of Parmesan or mozzarella. That's optional, but this soup really stands on its own. It's very satisfying, very flavorful. It's actually one of my oldest daughter's favorite. She has already requested it a few times this winter. This is such an easy throw and go recipe for really busy days. In my crock pot here, I have 2 large chicken breasts. This is probably close to a pound, maybe 3/4 of a pound to a pound of chicken breast. You could use more or less depending on what you want. And all I did was put a little salt and pepper on these because the ingredients I'm adding are already seasoned. So you can add some other seasonings according to your preference. But I'm going to now add just a regular 24-ounce jar of pasta sauce here. And you could, if you wanted to, just do the pasta sauce, but I like some tomatoes in mine, so I'm gonna throw in a can of diced tomatoes as well. And these are the fire roasted ones because we like these a lot, but I've used regular petite diced tomatoes or diced tomatoes with some Italian seasoning already in them. It's up to you. And now I'm just gonna pop the lid on this, and I'm gonna let it cook on low for 6 hours or so until the chicken is done and ready to shred up. If I'm cooking it on high, it's usually around 3 to 4 hours. My chicken is done, and I just used 2 forks to shred it right here in the crock pot. And now I am going to add 1 20-ounce bag of bite-sized cheese ravioli. They were out of the cheese tortellini that I normally buy, but these will suffice just fine. You could also use a couple of 9-ounce packages of the fresh tortellini. I am also going to stir in about 1/2 cup of heavy cream. You could leave that out if you wanted to. I feel like there's plenty of liquid in this to cook the tortellini. If you felt like it was not liquidy enough, you could add a little bit of broth or water at that point. But it's just going to take about 15 minutes or so for my tortellini to cook in my crock pot. I'm gonna keep it on low. If you had your crock pot on high, it might take as little as 10. If you have it on low, it can take as long as 20 minutes. It just sort of depends on the temperature of everything, but I'm cooking everything right here in the slow cooker. And then when it's done, I am just going to stir in a little shredded mozzarella cheese, or you could serve that over the top, and it will be done. It'll be ready to eat. Super easy. Another really easy recipe that I made using this capsule of ingredients, in fact, it might be the easiest recipe of all of the meals that I cooked, is a sausage pizza bubble up. I used just 4 ingredients: canned biscuit dough, pasta sauce, sausage, which I browned on the stove, and shredded mozzarella cheese. I think this is also a really good kid-friendly recipe. In fact, my son asked me if he could help me make this. So I cut the biscuits into pieces, about 6 or 8 pieces per biscuit, and then we tossed those with about 1 cup of the prepared pasta sauce. I sprinkled the cooked sausage over the top, and then we sprinkled the mozzarella cheese on top, and then we just baked that in the oven at 350 until the biscuits cooked and started to kind of bubble up through the other ingredients. It took ours about 35 minutes. Really simple recipe, but really tasty, and like I said, my kids really, really like this, and that's always a win in our house. This is one of my absolute favorite salads. Every time I see it on the menu at restaurants, I almost always order it with my meal, and it's really easy to make at home too. You start with salad greens. Spinach works really well with this, but spring greens, is that what they're called? Spring mix. That works well for this salad also. And then I'm going to top that with some thinly sliced apples. You can also use pears. And then I drizzle just a little bit of my homemade vinaigrette over the top. This is so easy to make. It's just 3 ingredients, that's it. And then I finish it off with some feta cheese and some chopped pecans, walnuts, or almonds. I find that they all work really well with this. Some restaurants even use candied pecans, you know, like the kind that are sugared, that are sweet, to add a little bit of sweetness to this salad, but I'm telling you, it hits the spot every single time. And the recipe for the vinaigrette that I make is in the Capsule cookbook, including just a single serving of the recipe, or you can scale it up to make a lot of it. By the way, if you want a little trick for how to store your salad greens in a way that will help keep them fresh a little bit longer, here's what I do. When I have those big cartons of salad greens or spinach, like in this video, I will take a paper towel and I will place it on top of the greens, close the container, make sure that it's secure, and then I will store it upside down in the refrigerator. And I find that this trick helps keep the salad greens fresh for just a little bit longer. The other thing that I will do is, if spinach especially is kind of getting to that point where it's just about to be past its prime, I will put it on a cookie sheet and pop it into the freezer. And then once it's frozen, I will gather it up and put it into a Ziploc bag. And then I can use it to make smoothies whenever I'm making smoothies. I can throw it into a smoothie with fruit, with protein powder. Works really well. Tonight I am making what I am calling in the Capsule meal plan mozzarella chicken. And you might remember a video several weeks back where I made a recipe from a church cookbook called Alfredo Chicken Bake, I think is what it was called. And this is sort of inspired by that. I've made some adjustments according to my experiences cooking that the first time. And it actually works pretty well with this capsule of ingredients. So I thought I would make something similar. In my Ziploc bag here, I have half a cup of flour and 1 teaspoon each of garlic, salt, and Italian seasoning. You can add whatever seasonings you would like. And I'm actually going to put my chicken pieces right in this bag and shake it up gently to coat each of my chicken pieces. And I'm using chicken that is already cut into tenders, but you could just use regular chicken breast. You would just want to make sure that it's about the same thickness. Once the chicken is coated in the flour and the spices, I'm going to put it into my skillet where I have melted 4 tablespoons of butter, and I'm going to brown it for about 3 to 4 minutes on each side. My chicken has browned on both sides, and at this point you can remove it to a casserole dish. But because my skillet is oven safe, I'm actually just going to keep it right in the skillet here. And what I'm gonna do is just pour about half a cup of cream, heavy cream, over the top. And then I'm going to sprinkle mozzarella cheese over the top of each chicken piece, and I'm going to put this into the oven to finish cooking. And how long it takes your chicken to cook really depends on the size and thickness of the chicken pieces that you are using. I'm going to start mine at about 25 minutes because they're smaller and because I've already partially cooked them, but it should reach an internal temperature of at least 165. Now, since the chicken is pretty rich, we're just going to have this with rice and some roasted zucchini, and that will be tonight's dinner. In my crock pot here, I have 3 pounds of Granny Smith apples, which I peeled, cored, and sliced into 8 slices. I want my apples to be pretty chunky for this, not little bitty pieces. I'm going to add to this about a teaspoon or so of vanilla with my handy dandy cap teaspoon. I use the caps all the time for measuring. Not an exact science, but what can I say? It's there. And then in this bowl, I have a 1/4 cup of white sugar, a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, and a teaspoon of cinnamon that I stirred all together. And I'm just going to sprinkle that over the top of my apples. I'm gonna pop the lid on and cook this on high, and then after an hour, I'm gonna come back and stir these. I know that typically with crock pots, you don't wanna lift the lid and let all the heat out, but with this recipe, I feel like it works better if you stir it part way through. And then I'm gonna let them continue cooking for 30 minutes to an hour. My crock pot cooks kinda high, so they might actually cook much faster. If you overcook these, the apples will start to fall apart a little bit more and you'll end up with applesauce, which is still delicious, but it just won't be, you know, apple chunks, which is what I'm shooting for with this. Okay, these are definitely done and they smell amazing. I probably cooked mine just a tad too long. I let them cook the full 2 hours. So 1 hour and then stirring them, and then another hour. And since my crock pot cooks kind of hot on high, it probably would have been just perfect if I'd just let them go 90 minutes total. So I have the crock pot turned off, and I'm just gonna leave the lid off so that they'll cool off and stop cooking. But these will be absolutely fantastic with some homemade whipped cream and some of the crushed up candied pecans that I made today. And both of those recipes and this one that I just showed are in the Capsule Meal Plan E cookbook. Speaking of sweet treats, if I'm thinking about a capsule meal plan for my family at least, I'm probably going to include something that allows me to make some desserts. That's why I included brownie mix as one of the capsule ingredients. And since eggs are also included in this capsule, and as long as you have some oil and water, you can probably make brownies according to the box directions. But I also found a way that you can upgrade these by adding just a few extra ingredients. And there's also all kinds of things that you can do to brownies to make them even better. Things that you can add to them, things that you can top them with, like some delicious, really easy chocolate frosting. Those ideas and many more for what you can do with brownie mix are included with my capsule meal plan ebook that is coming out in conjunction with this video. There is a link in the description box below that will take you to my new capsule meal plan. This is the fall 2022 capsule meal plan. And I will tell you that I had more ideas for recipes to utilize this capsule of ingredients than I could possibly include in one video if the video was going to stay under 30 minutes. So in that ebook, you'll not only find the capsule ingredient list and the recipes that I'm sharing here, but lots of additional recipes and several other resources. Ideas for how to utilize leftovers, meal planning resources like a monthly meal planning calendar and a weekly meal planning calendar that includes a grocery shopping list. In the description box below is a list of the pages, the things that are included in the ebook. And again, the link for where you can go and check that out is in the description box as well. So be sure to give that a look. You might remember a couple of years ago, the TikTok feta pasta that was all the rage, so much to the point that it actually became difficult to find blocks of feta cheese in the grocery store for a while. At least that was what I contributed it to. Well, last night I made a feta tortellini that's basically like a dump and bake recipe. It was so easy, really delicious. I started with a block of feta cheese. It was a 7-ounce block of feta. I placed it in a 9x13 casserole dish. And then I used 2 cans of petite diced tomatoes that I just poured all around that block of feta. I sprinkled some Italian seasoning and some minced garlic over the top of that. And I popped it into the oven at 350 for about 25 minutes. Then I pulled it out of the oven, gave it a stir just to combine those ingredients, and then I added a couple handfuls of baby spinach and 1 package of frozen tortellini. I actually ended up using frozen mini raviolis because at the time that I'm filming this, I'm having a difficult time finding frozen tortellini in my store, but I think it would work with either one. I put that all back into the oven for another 20 minutes, and then it was ready to serve, like a 1-pan meal. I didn't even have to dirty up any other dishes. I'm actually working on a little lunch prep right now for the just crazy busy week and weekend we have ahead, just to have something that we can grab really quickly for lunch, probably just my husband and myself. And sometimes the best answers are the easiest, simplest ones. All I did this morning was throw a pound of chicken breast in the crock pot with a pound of baby carrots. I sprinkled some minced garlic, some garlic salt and pepper over the top, and then I also put 4 tablespoons of butter. I didn't even melt the butter. I just cut it up into little squares and put it on top of that. I cooked it on high for 3 hours, and now I'm just putting that into a container. I'm shredding up the chicken. I'll probably top it with a little bit of feta cheese and make up some rice to go along with it. I'm gonna get 4 really easy lunches that will be also delicious. Today I'm using some of this white rice that I got in a recent Thrive Market box to finish up these meal preps. But here are some things that I do, that I've learned to do whenever I'm cooking rice, that make it turn out perfect, like perfectly cooked and fluffy almost every single time. And I've done this several times for this particular capsule meal plan. If I have the time, I try to brown the rice in a little bit of butter or olive oil, like maybe a tablespoon. Sometimes I'll throw in some diced onion. Sometimes I'll also saute a few other veggies, like maybe some bell pepper along with it, depending on what I'm gonna serve it with. Then I will add the appropriate amount of water. I will bring it to a boil, cover it, reduce the heat to low, and I will let it cook for just 10 minutes. Then I turn the heat off or I remove the pan completely from the heat, but I leave the lid on and I let it finish cooking by steaming with all of the heat that's already in the pot. And then after about 10 minutes or so, or sometimes longer if I'm just not quite ready to serve it, I take the lid off and I fluff it with a fork, and it turns out great pretty much every single time, especially when I'm cooking basmati rice, which is my favorite, or just regular long grain white rice. If you're cooking brown rice, this system wouldn't work as well because it needs to cook longer. So you would just have to play around with the initial cook time and then how long you would need to cook it versus allowing it to steam to finish it up. But that's how I cook rice and how I've been cooking it for this capsule meal plan when you see it in my other recipes. If you would like to see more videos like this or more capsule meal plans utilizing other ingredients, be sure to leave me a comment and let me know. And also don't forget to check out the ebook that accompanies this particular capsule of ingredients. It's linked in the description box.